Not quite long, Yinka couldn't afford to resist Adaeze's enchanting beauty and bound in chains and always in tears. Each time he tries to say some words, but they weren't audible. She immediately screamed, and her scream attracted Yeye, and she asked, "Child, what is it?" Adaeze handed Yeye the phone. When Yeye saw the news, she said, "My child, come inside with me. We need to talk." So Adaeze followed Yeye into the hut. She asked Adaeze to sit down. Then, with eyes that seemed to pierce through the time itself, Yeye looked at her sternly and said, "Child, the path of darkness is fraught with peril. You have tasted revenge, but it will consume you if you continue. My child, it is time you stop." So guys, before we continue with this intriguing story, please consider subscribing if you've not and put on the bell notification icon so that whenever I post a new story, you'll be the first to know. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for the love. I really appreciate. And if you're stumbling upon this video for the very first time, please check the links in the description box so you'll be able to watch the previous episode. Now let's get down into this interesting, intriguing, and life lesson filled story. Adaeze shook her head in disagreement and said, "I must see through this. They took my husband from me and they must pay." Yeye said, "But the people that took your husband away are gone. You had already avenged his death. Now even the innocent are being hurt. Don't you think it's time you stop already?" Then Adaeze said, "I never looked for them. They came for me because of my body. And that is why I lost the only man that genuinely cares for me. Yeye, I have lost the only thing I treasure. So any man that lost after my body shall pay dearly for it." Adaeze went further to say, "Yeye, they keep coming for me, even when I did them no wrong. Chief Afolabi is not dead, so why am I declared wanted? How am I supposed to live freely when a bounty has been placed on my head?" Yeye looked at her and said, "My child, I can help you get a new life, you know. You will be transformed into another body and no one will ever recognize you. With that, you can live freely and happily." But Adaeze got up angrily and said, "Yeye, I must see to the end of this. All those involved in my case must go down. I will hunt them one after the other and bring them down. Only then will my soul find rest." Seeing the determination in Adaeze's eyes, Yeye knew that the words of caution will fall on deaf ear. Then Yeye said, "Adaeze, my child, at this point, I think I will hand you over to someone else. The person will continue from where I stopped." So Yeye directed Adaeze to Iya Olokun. When Adaeze arrived at Iya Olokun's shrine, she welcomed Adaeze warmly and said, "Do you really want to do this?" Adaeze nodded and said, "Yes, Iya. Prepare, for in 3 days' time, we shall be traveling to the underworld. You get to meet our queen mother. But before then, you have to undergo some form of cleansing here first. You shall stay without food nor water for the next 3 days." Adaeze nodded and smiled in agreement. So Adaeze spent 3 days in solitude, fasting and meditating, while preparing herself for the journey ahead. On the 3rd day, Iya Olokun and Adaeze began their journey to the underworld. They traveled to a community called Ilepo. It is a village which shared boundary with an ocean. At nightfall, when the moon cast a silver glow upon the ocean, with its gentle waves lapping against the shores of the ocean, beneath the ocean surface lay a world unseen by human eye, a realm of mystical beauty and formidable power. This was the Marine Kingdom, where spirits and ancient beings dwell, where Adaeze will be further fortified and become more powerful. Iya Olokun and Adaeze stood on the shore, with Adaeze's heart pounding correspondingly with rhythmic crashing of the waves. She had made up her mind to become unstoppable, and tonight she was ready to pay any price that comes with it. Iya Olokun called out the Queen Mother saying, Yemojao! 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 Your children are here. Are we welcomed? Immediately, the water began to ripple for some minutes. Then, all of a sudden, everywhere became calm again. So they stepped into the ocean. As they stepped into the cool water, Adaeze felt a surge of energy, as if the sea recognized and welcomed her. Then the water enveloped them, pulling them deeper into its embrace. Adaeze felt no fear, only a profound sense of belonging. As they sank, the light of the moon faded, replaced by the luminescence of the marine kingdom. Some strange and beautiful creatures swam past them, their scales shimmering in halls of blue and green. Ahead, a grand palace emerged, carved with coral and adorned with pearls. Guards with tridents stood at the entrance, their eyes glowing with an ethereal light. They parted as Adaeze and Iyoloko approached, recognizing them as their own. Inside the palace was a marvel of otherworldly architectures, spirals and curves intertwined, creating a labyrinth of chambers and halls. Adaeze was led to a vast room where a council of elders awaited her. These beings, neither wholly human nor entirely spirit, radiated wisdom and power. The Queen Mother at the center, a regal figure with a crown of seaweed and shells, rose to address her. Adaeze, daughter of land and sea, you have chosen to undergo the initiation that will awaken your true form. Are you ready for this journey? For it is different phase of life, my child. So I ask again, are you ready? Adaeze nodded, her voice steady. I am ready, she said. The Queen Mother gestured, and a group of maidens emerged, carrying bowls of sacred herbs and potions. They began to anoint Adaeze, their chants echoing through the chamber. The herbs, a blend of mystical plants and marine flora, were used to cleanse the spirit and prepare the body for transformation. Adaeze felt warmth spreading through her, and sensation that was both soothing and invigorating. The maidens led her to a pool at the center of the room, its water glowing with a soft golden light. She stepped into the pool, feeling the energy pulsing beneath the surface. The Queen Mother's voice resonated through the chamber. To gain power of transformation, you must pass through two trials. Each will test a different aspect of your life, the aspect of courage and the aspect of wisdom. The first trial began as the water around Adaeze grew turbulent. From the depths, a serpent-like creature emerged, its eyes burning with a fierce intensity. Adaeze knew that she has to confront this beast to face her deepest fear. Summoning her courage, she met the serpent gaze, feeling its power challenging her own. She reached out, not with aggression, but with a calm, steady hand. The serpent hissed, but as Adaeze stood firm, it bowed its head, acknowledging her bravery. The water calmed, and the Queen Mother nodded in approval. You have passed the trial of courage, Adaeze. For the second trial, Adaeze was transported to a vast library. It was lined with ancient scrolls and books. Here she was to seek knowledge hidden within the text. She wandered through the hallway down to a particular scroll that seemed to call to her. Unfolding it, she found a riddle written in an ancient script. Using her intuition, she unraveled the riddle, unlocking a door to the next chamber. The Queen Mother appeared once more and said, you have passed the trial of wisdom, Adaeze. With the trials complete, Adaeze returned to the pool. The Queen Mother and the council gathered around her, their expressions solemn and relevant. You have proven yourself worthy, Adaeze. Now you shall receive the gift of transformation. The water began to swell, creating a vortex of light and energy. Adaeze felt herself being lifted, her body dissolving and reforming into a cascade of sensations. She could feel her essence expanding, connecting with the sea and the land, with every living being. When the light subdued, Adaeze stood transformed. She felt an incredible power within her, the ability to shift her form at will. She could not traverse between human world and the marine kingdom, a bridge between two realms. The queen mother said, "Congratulations, Adaeze, you are now a full-fledged family member. This now is your new home. Now I release you to go seek those that seek you. Now you have the power to transform into any being you desire. Henceforth, Adaeze, you shall be like the wind, for no one knoweth where it cometh, nor where it goeth." The queen mother laughed out loudly. Meanwhile, while Adaeze was at the underworld undergoing her fortification rituals, the news of her being declared wanted had spread round the whole country. Everyone was eager to find her, some because they had cause to settle with her, and others to claim the price tag on her head. Meanwhile, Otumba Yomi, the DG of police, invited Obinna and Wale, who were the DPOs in charge of the district where Amokwe and Ibaji are zoned. That is the areas where Adaeze hit was felt the most. Three of them sat in the DG's office, mapping out strategies on ways to capture Adaeze. She must be captured dead or alive, the DG commanded. Meanwhile, Adaeze was watching all the activities from under the sea. She laughed out loudly and said, "You seek for me, I will surely come to you." She laughed. Adaeze emerged from the water, stepping onto the shore with a newfound sense of power. The initiation has awakened her true self, and she was now ready to cause more havoc, ready to go after those who wanted her downfall. Her first victim was DPO Wale. DPO Wale was a man known for his strictness in public, but infamous for his infidelity in private. Wale was having an affair with a junior colleague, Sergeant Nike, a scandalous relationship that he kept hidden from his family and public eye. One cool evening, as Wale relaxed at home with his wife and children, Adaeze decided it was time to strike. She transformed herself into Sergeant Nike, capturing every detail of the young woman's appearance and voice. With a wicked smile, she dialed Wale's number. "Hello, sir," Adaeze said breathlessly. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I'm stranded. My car just broke down on the old plumped road. It is getting dark. Can you please help me?" Wale's eye darted towards his wife, who was busy in the kitchen. He knew he shouldn't, but the temptation was just too great. "Don't worry, Nike. I will be there soon," he replied, disguising his intention with false concern. He quickly made an excuse about a work emergency to his wife and rushed out of the house. As he drove to the remote location, his heart pounded with anticipation. He found the supposed Nike waiting beside a broken down car. "Thank you for coming, sir," she said, flashing a smile that would have melted a stone. "I didn't know who else to call." Wale, emboldened by her gratitude and cover of darkness, suggested that they find a hotel for the night. She agreed, fringing innocence. They drove to a discreet hotel on the outskirts of the town. The night passed in a haze of deceit and loss. After they made out, Wale laid back, basking in afterglow of his indiscretion. Just then his phone rang. It was the real Sergeant Nike. Confused and suspicious, Wale answered and said, "Hello, Nike. I am so sorry to call you this late, but I wanted to let you know that I fixed my car earlier. I am already at home," Nike said. Wale's heart stopped. He glanced at the woman beside him, his mind racing. "If Nike is at home, then who are you?" he demanded, turning to Adaeze. Adaeze's eye gleamed with a malevolent light. She let out a chilling laugh that sent shivers down Wale's spine. "Oh dear Wale," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "I am Adaeze. I learned you are looking for me. Now I am here." Fear gripped Wale as he scrambled to get up, but it was too late. Adaeze enchanted an incantation under her breath, and the room seemed to darken as a cold wind blew through. Wale's body convulsed. He screamed, muffled by the dark magic that engulfs him. Within moments, he lay lifeless on the bed, his eyes wide open with terror. Adaeze stood over his body, her transformation slowly reversing. Then she said, Obinna, you are next. DPO Obinna was a figure of authority and respect, yet his home life was turbulent. One fateful evening, an argument with his wife erupted like a storm. Voices were raised, accusations flew, and in a fit of anger, Obinna snatched his car key and stormed out of the house, leaving his wife in tears. The night was heavy with humidity as Obinna drove aimlessly, his mind clouded with anger. He found himself outside a dimly lit bar, a place he frequented only when he needed an escape. He walked in and sat at the corner, ordering a strong drink to calm his nerves. As he sipped his whiskey, he couldn't help but notice a stunning lady sitting alone at a nearby table. She had an aura of mystery that was impossible to ignore. Adaeze had been waiting. She watched him with calculated interest, knowing that this was her moment. She transformed into a vision of pure aura, her eyes drawing him in like a moth to the flame. Sensing his vulnerability, she approached him with a soft and inviting smile. Mind if I join you? She asked, her voice a melodic whisper. Obinna, eager for a distraction from his troubles, welcomed her company. They talked, laughed, and drank together. The tension from earlier slowly melted away. Adaeze listened intently, her eyes never leaving his, as she spun a web of enchantment around him. When Obinna suggested that they move to a more private setting, she agreed without hesitation. They rented a room in the bar's lodging area, a secluded place where the dim light and the scent of cheap perfume set the stage for what was to come. Inside the room, the air was thick with anticipation. They undressed quickly, losing themselves in the heat of the moment. Obinna felt a strange sense of relief, a fleeting escape from his life turmoil. As they lay together in aftermath, Adaeze's demeanor shifted. The warmth in her eyes turned cold, and her smile became a sinister grin. Obinna, exhausted and vulnerable, noticed the change but was too drained to react. Suddenly, Adaeze sat up, her body shrouded in an area of glow. She began to chant in a language Obinna could not understand, her voice growing louder. Fear gripped Obinna as he tried to move, but it was too late. Adaeze's transformation was complete. Her beautiful facet melted away, revealing her true form, a terrifying vision with eyes that glow like embers. She laughed wickedly, the sound echoing off the wall as she raised her hand and summoned the dark forces at her command. Your time has come, Obinna, she said wickedly. Obinna asked with a weak voice, Who are you? She answered, I am Adaeze. I heard you are looking for me. Now I am here. With a final bone-chilling incantation, Adaeze unleashed her black magic. Obinna's body convulsed as pain ripped through him. His eyes widened in horror as he felt his life force being drained away. He screamed, muffled by the oppressive darkness that filled the room. Within moments, he was dead. His once powerful frame now became lifeless and cold. Adaeze stood over his body, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction, and she said, Otumba, I am coming for you. DJ Otumba was a man of considerable influence and power, but he had a dark side. For months, he has been lusting after his beautiful neighbor Ife, despite being a married man. His longing had become an obsession, one that Adaeze decided to exploit. One evening, Adaeze transformed herself into Ife. Her black magic was flawless. She could replicate not only Ife's appearance, but also her voice and mannerism. With a silly smile, she picked up her phone and dialed Otumba's number. Hello, Otumba, she said, her voice an exact match for Ife's. I've been thinking about you. Can we meet? There's a hotel, the Blue Sky Palace, where we can be alone. Otumba's heart raced. He has fantasized about this moment for a very long time. He quickly agreed, and after ensuring that his alibi was solid, he headed to the hotel with anticipation. At the Blue Sky Palace, Adaeze, still in disguise of Ife, awaited him. She was dressed provocatively, her eyes glinting with malevolent intent. When Otumba arrived, he was captivated by the sight of Ife. They exchanged few words, and the chemistry was electric, and they both found themselves in the tone of passion. After their elliptic encounter, as Otumba laid beside Ife, his phone rang. It was his wife, and the caller said, "Hello dear, have you heard?" Otumba asked, "Heard what?" She said, "Our neighbor Ife is dead." His eyes widened in horror as he was confused, and he asked, "Which Ife are you talking about, please?" The wife answered and said, "Ife now, our neighbor. How many Ife do you know?" Otumba said, "It is not possible. How do you know that?" "Okay, I'll call you back." Then in fear, he turned to the woman laying by his side and said, "If Ife is dead, then who are you?" he demanded, his voice trembling. Adeze's lips coiled into a wicked smile. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and she began to laugh, a sound that chilled Otumba to the bone. "Who am I?" she echoed mockingly. "I am your worst nightmare. I am Adaeze. I learned you have been looking for me, so I'm here." In a swift motion, Adaeze enchanted an incantation under her breath. The room grew cold, and the shadows seemed to come alive. Otumba tried to move, but his body was paralyzed by an invisible force. His eyes darted away in terror as his eyes darted around in terror as dark energy began to wrap around him, tightening with each passing second. "Please, no, no, no," he whispered, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Adeze's laughter grew louder. She relished the fear in his eyes, the helplessness of a man who had always been in control. With a final incantation, the dark energy enveloped Otumba completely. His body convulsed violently, and then he was still. The life drained from his eyes, and his once powerful presence was reduced to a lifeless husk. Adaeze stood over his body, her transformation fading as she returned to her normal self. She looked down at the corpse with satisfaction. This was only the beginning. Her powers were growing stronger, and with each kill, she felt more invisible. The death of Diji Otumba, Dipio Obina, and Wale sent shocking waves and panic throughout the nation, especially in the police force. The case is now complex, so the IG decided to seek the help of some foreign counterparts. So some of these countries decided to send down some of their security men down to the country. Among the men sent was Ade, a Nigerian who was based overseas and worked as a secret security agent. When Ade got into the country, he took his time to study the case. With time, he was able to connect the dots. All the late officers were in charge of Adeze's case. He also observed that the three had the same pattern of death. He was able to conclude that Adeze's case wasn't a case to be fought with just physical weapon because she wasn't an ordinary woman. With this conclusion, Ade decided to travel down to visit his mother in the village for fortification, and his mother was no other but Yeye. When Ade arrived at his mother's shrine, the scent of burning insects and the rhythmic chants filled the air. Yeye, though fringed surprised to see her son, knew why he had come, and she said, "You must go back, Ade. This battle is not your battle. This fight is not your fight." She warned him, her voice filled with concern. But Ade was resolute. "I need your help, mother, for my fallen colleagues, for justice," he insisted. "This is my job, Yeye. I must do it." "Not here. Go back to base. This fight is beyond what you know. This fight is beyond you," his mother said. Yeye went further to say, "I will extra fortify you, Ade, but you must go back immediately after the ritual and never set your feet into this country ever again." So at night, Yeye took her son to the river for extra fortification. As Ade stood in the sacred waters of the rivers, Yeye performed ancient rites, calling upon the spirit to shield her son. The water shimmered, and a deep hum filled the air, sealing the fortification. Lastly, his mother warned him never to have any affair with any woman until she tells him to do so. So very early the next morning, as Ade was driving back to the city, he sighted a very beautiful young woman who was in distress because her car had broken down on a very lonely path. He pulled over to help her. "What's wrong with your car?" he asked. "I can't tell," she answered in a very charming voice. Ade opened the bonnet, checked it, and asked her to turn on the car. She did, and the car came alive. She then moved closer to Ade and said, "My name is Mira," stretching her hands for a handshake. "I am Ade," he shook her palm. Immediately their palms touched. Both felt hot burning sensation. They quickly withdrew their palms immediately. Ade looked at her and asked, "Who are you?" Immediately Adaeze disappeared. Ade was shaking and he quickly drove away from the spot. Yeye monitored what happened between Adaeze and Ade. That night, Yeye stood by the bank of the river which was close to her house and called forth Adaeze. Adaeze emerged from the river looking frustrated, desperate and angry. Then Yeye greeted her with a knowing look and said, "You cannot hurt him, Adaeze. You can't harm him. He is my son," Yeye said. Adaeze was shocked and asked, "Your son?" Yeye said, "Yes, my son. So you see, I can't let you hurt him. In our kingdom, dogs don't eat dogs." Adaeze was furious and she said, "But Yeye, he's not one of us. In our kingdom, sisterhood comes first. Yeye, if I don't get him, he will get me." Yeye was angry and said, "Adaeze, are you challenging me now? Remember, I taught you all that you know, but not all that I know." Adaeze replied Yeye angrily and said, "Yeye, one day a servant shall become a master. Don't forget that." And Adaeze disappeared. Yeye, knowing that Adaeze wouldn't stop at nothing until he conquers her son, decided to pay him a visit. Ade was sitting in his house when his mother appeared. He was surprised to see her and he said, Mama, what are you doing here? What?" Just before he could say another word, Yeye said, "Ade, this is not time to ask questions. That woman will stop at nothing until she destroys you. I know Adaeze very well. You can't destroy her easily. Now listen to me. This is what you will do." First, she handed Ade an enchanted bracelet and said, "Ade, my son, ensure that this bracelet is always on your wrist. This will help you recognize her whenever she's around you. The bracelet will always glow whenever her presence is around, irrespective of the form she took." Next, she handed Ade a white powder and said, "Every night before you sleep, sprinkle this on the floor in a corner of your room. Whenever she comes in the night, try every means possible to lure her into the sprinkled powder. Then she will become unconscious when she steps on it. Then quickly bound her hands and legs. After that, you call my name. I will know what to do afterwards with her body." Yeye said. "Ade, please stay away from women for now." With these final words, Yeye disappeared. Ade kept awake all night pondering on what his mother told him. The next morning, Adaeze drove into the police district where Ade worked. She disguised as a senior police officer from another district and requested to see Ade. Then she was given access to his office. Immediately she got into his office, Ade's bracelet glowed. Then Ade shouted, "Adaeze, what are you doing here?" Adaeze was angry and she disappeared. Ade was scared and his body covered in sweat, and he wondered what could have become of him if he wasn't wearing the bracelet. That same night, as Ade was sleeping, he felt a strange presence in his room. He woke up immediately, but he didn't see anyone. But he was so scared to go back to sleep, so he decided to sit and keep awake all night. Just few minutes later, Adaeze appeared looking fiercely mean, ready to destroy him. Ade noticed that his bracelet didn't glow this time around, and this could only mean one thing: Adaeze's power is now stronger than the bracelet. Tonight, it is either he destroys her or she destroys him, Ade thought to himself. Ade knew that his only chance of conquering Adaeze is to lure her into the white powder on the floor. He has to think of a means to do that, and it has to be very fast. Just then, he thought of a plan. This is not the time to challenge her, he thought to himself. So he pretended to be scared of Adaeze's presence. He started pleading with her to spare his life while he gently moved towards the powder. Adaeze felt so powerful seeing the fear in Ade's eyes. She said to him, "Today you will die, and your death shall be very painful. But before then, let me keep enjoying the sight of this pain and fear in your eyes." Ade kept moving towards the powder, and Adaeze kept following him until she finally stepped on the powder. Immediately, she fell down and became unconscious. Exhausted, scared, and shaking, Ade sat down, but immediately he remembered that his mother instructed him to tie up the unconscious Adaeze. He quickly dashed into his kitchen to get a rope. When Ade got to the kitchen, he couldn't find the rope that he kept earlier, so he tried searching for it. Back to where Adaeze laid unconscious, some of the sisterhood from the marine kingdom appeared and carried her body and disappeared with it. When Ade came out from the kitchen, Adaeze's body was nowhere to be found. Adaeze woke up from her unconscious state only to find herself in the marine kingdom, surrounded by her sisters and the queen mother. But before she could utter a word, the queen mother looked at her and said, "You have been bound from leaving this kingdom. The power to transit from marine kingdom to the earth has been stripped off you." Adaeze looked at her and said, "Yemoja, why?" The queen mother looked at Adaeze and said, "The one you seek to destroy belongs to one of us. Yes, he is Yeye's son, and in our kingdom, dogs don't eat dogs, Adaeze." Then Adaeze had no other choice but to bow in acknowledgement of the queen mother's decree. Although Adaeze's power was subdued by the same people who empowered her, the story of Adaeze continued to send shivers down the spine of those who witnessed it, because no one could tell whether Adaeze will ever return or not. So guys, I'll be sharing 3 moral lessons from the story. The first moral lesson is that we should stay away from strange women. We should learn to stay faithful to our partners for our own good, because staying with strange women or being with strange women only ends up reducing one to nothing. And this can be found in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs chapter 5 verse 8 to 10, and it says, "Keep a path far from her, do not go near the door of her heart, lest you lose your honor to others and your dignity to one who is cruel, lest strangers feast on your wealth and your toy enrich the house of another." So please, if you want your honor to be intact, if you want your dignity to be intact, and if you don't want to lose all that you've labored for to others, please stay away from strange women. Stay faithful to your partner. The second lesson is inspired by one of the comments from part 2 of the story, and this is it. I'm going to rephrase it. It says, "Once you get yourself involved in evil, you keep going deep into it." Just like Adaeze just wanted to avenge her husband's death, but she went about it the wrong way, and this made her to end up going deeper and deeper into evil. And the third moral lesson from those story is that there is a wise saying that says, when you are in a marketplace, do not throw stones, because you never can tell if your loved ones visited the market that day, as the stone might hit him or her. So just like Yeye, when she was empowering Adaeze, she never thought that a day will come where her own son Ade will become Adeze's victim. So we should be very, very careful, because what goes around comes around. So guys, if you watched up to this extent, thank you so much for following the story. But please, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please, I plead with you, kindly support this little channel of mine, help this channel to grow. Please subscribe and make sure you put on your notification icon, very very important, so that whenever I post a new story, you'll be the first to know. Please comment on this story because I would love to learn, I would love to hear from you too. I would love to learn what you've learned from this story. And also like this video, share it so that others too can learn one or two lessons from the story. And until our next story, thank you so much for watching. See you. Bye bye.